You think the worst part is catching your family stealing your money? That was just the beginning. When I, a 58-year-old widow, installed a spy camera in my own safe, I did not expect to find anything but guilty fingers. But the footage did not just record theft. It recorded a conspiracy. They did not just want my money. They wanted my life. And they had a detailed plan to take it. My name is Margaret. I am 58 years old. And for 30 of those years, I organized the quiet corners of the Denver Public Library, now retired. I live in that same quiet, middle-class neighborhood in Colorado, in the house where my late husband Frank and I built our lives. I have always been a person of lists, of organization. I find comfort in knowing exactly where things are supposed to be. My mind is, or at least I have always believed it to be, meticulous. 6 months ago, that quiet changed. But in a way I welcomed my son, David, and his wife, Chloe, moved in. David had lost his job, a good position at a tech firm called Synthodynamics, and they were struggling to make ends meet. A layoff. He called it. Of course. I opened my home. He is my only son. The house felt too large, too empty, since Frank passed. At first, it was wonderful. The silence was filled with laughter and the sounds of a full home again. Chloe was a vision of sweetness. She reorganized my pantry without my asking, labeling the spice jars in alphabetical order. She insisted on cooking dinner most nights, her meals always light and healthy. David, in turn, busied himself with the small repairs I had let slide: the sticking front door, the leaky faucet in the guest bath. They were the picture of a perfect, supportive family, rallying together through a rough patch. I felt needed. I felt like a mother again. My support was more than just room and board. In Frank's old study, a room I mostly kept closed, sits his old safe. It is a heavy, dark green rectangle hidden behind a framed print of the Rocky Mountains. It is not where we kept great wealth, but it holds our lives. Frank's military papers, the deed to the house, my mother's jewelry, and a substantial amount of emergency cash. I always keep a few $1,000s in cash, just in case. Frank taught me that. You never know, he would say. I gave David and Chloe the combination. It felt right. They were family. Trust was absolute. I loved David fiercely. When he was a boy, I would have moved mountains for him. And that feeling does not fade just because he has grown. Seeing him stressed about his job search, watching Chloe pinch pennies, it hurt my heart. You just stay here as long as you need. I told them over one of Chloe's chicken dinners. This is your home. We are a family. You will get back on their feet. They smiled, so grateful. There was only one small, strange note in this domestic harmony. Chloe. She was solicitous, overly so, perhaps, especially about my health. Margaret, did you take your vitamins this morning? She would ask, her eyes wide with concern. Are you sure you remembered your blood pressure pill? Let me get you some water. I take 2 pills a day, 1 for blood pressure, 1 multivitamin. It is hardly a complicated regimen for a woman of 58. Her intense focus on it felt odd, but I brushed it off. She was a caring person. That is all. She was just worried about her new mother-in-law. My best friend, Eleanor, was having a birthday. We were meeting for lunch, and I wanted to give her a little something extra. I decided to pull $200 from the emergency cash, a crisp new $100 bill and 5 20s. I went into Frank's study, the smell of old books and his faint, lingering scent of pipe tobacco still clinging to the curtains. I moved the painting, spun the dial right, left, right, and the heavy door clicked open. I reached for the envelope where I keep the cash. The stack of $20 bills was there, held by a paperclip. But as I thumbed through them, my fingers paused. It just felt thin. I always keep a specific amount, and I was sure there should have been more. I counted. It seemed short by at least $100. I stood there, frowning. Had I taken some out for the gardener last week and forgotten I must have? I am getting to that age, I suppose. I shook my head. Annoyed at my own forgetfulness, took the money I needed and closed the heavy door. It was nothing. I was just being forgetful. A few days later, my library association was holding its annual fundraising gala. It was a formal event, the first I had attended in some time. I decided to wear my mother's diamond earrings. They were studs, simple, elegant, and the one piece of true value she had left me. I went to the safe. Frank's study felt the same, smelled the same. I opened the heavy door and found the small, velvet-covered box exactly where it should be. I took the box back to my bedroom and opened it. They were there, nestled in the faded satin. I put one on, then the other, and looked in the mirror. Something was wrong. I leaned closer to the mirror, touching the stone in my left ear. It felt right, but it looked off. The light in my bedroom, usually warm, hit the facets, and the stone threw back a rainbow of colours, almost garish. My mother's diamonds never did that. They had a deep, clear, almost blue fire. These just seemed too sparkly, too fake. A cold wash of anxiety passed over me. I shook my head. It must be the light bulbs. I must have replaced them with those new, harsh LED bulbs. Or maybe my eyes were just getting old. Maybe I did not remember them correctly. I took them off, placed them back in the box, and put the box on my dresser, deciding to wear my pearls instead. But I could not shake the feeling of wrongness. In the days that followed, the house, which had been my sanctuary, began to feel like a hall of mirrors. Little things, small dissonances, started piling up. Chloe and David's helpfulness seemed to intensify. "Mum, you left your keys in the fridge again," Chloe said one morning, holding them up with a sweet, pitying smile. They were dangling from her finger, cold and slick with condensation. I stared at them. I had no memory of going to the refrigerator that morning, let alone putting my keys inside. "I did not," I said, my voice firmer than I intended. Chloe's smile faltered, just for a second. "Oh, honey, yes, you did. I found them right next to the milk. Don't worry about it. We all have those days." But I did not have those days. Then came the mail. I handle my own finances. Frank and I were always diligent. I pay my bills the day they arrive. David approached me in the study, holding an envelope. "Mum, this electricity bill is overdue. They are threatening to shut it off. Did you forget?" He looked concerned, his brow furrowed just like his father's used to. "Don't worry. I paid it online for you. You should not have to worry about these things." I took the letter from him. It was stamped in red, "Final Notice." But I was certain I had paid it. I remembered writing the check. I remembered sealing the envelope. Did I forget to mail it? Had I mailed an empty envelope? The confusion was dizzying. It felt like my mind was unraveling, stitch by stitch. I began to doubt myself, deeply. Was this it? Was this the beginning of it? The decline my own mother had suffered? The fog that stole her mind? But I am a librarian. I am a creature of evidence and fact. Late one night, when the house was silent and David and Chloe were asleep in their room downstairs, I went to my desk. I took out a simple spiral notebook and a pen. I started writing everything down. Tuesday, keys in fridge, Chloe found. No memory. Thursday, electric bill overdue. David found. Certain I paid it. Saturday, Chloe said I promised to pick up her dry cleaning. No memory of conversation. I was documenting my own perceived decay. The velvet box with the earrings was still on my dresser. I had not put it back in the safe. I picked it up. The doubt about the money, the keys, the bill. It all crystallized around these stones. They felt cold in my hand. I had to know. I had to know if my mind was failing me, or if something else was happening. I needed an anchor. I needed one. Solid fact in this sea of confusion. The next day, I told David and Chloe I was going to my book club. Instead, I drove downtown to Mr. Alport's jewelry store. He had been our family jeweler for 20 years. He had appraised these very earrings for me after my mother passed. He greeted me warmly. "Margaret, wonderful to see you. What can we do for you?" My hands were shaking slightly. "Mr. Alport, I need you to look at these. Just check the settings. Make sure they are secure." I could not bring myself to say, "Are they real?" He took the box, put on his loupe, and picked up the first earring. He turned it under the bright light of his lamp. The room was silent except for the soft ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. His posture changed. He stopped smiling. He examined it for perhaps 30 seconds, then put it down and picked up the second one. He spent even less time on that. He finally took the loupe from his eye and looked at me, his expression not confused, but sad. "Margaret," he said, his voice gentle. "Where did you get these?" "They were my mother's," I whispered. He shook his head slowly. "Ma'am, these are very good cubic zirconia, excellent fakes, but they are most assuredly not diamonds." The air left my lungs. The room tilted. It was not my mind. It was not the light bulbs. It was not my memory. They were fake. The fog of confusion instantly evaporated, replaced by a terrible, cold clarity. Someone had gone into Frank's safe, taken my mother's diamonds, and replaced them with glass. I paid Mr. Alport for his time, my mind racing. I walked back to my car. The fake earrings, heavy as lead in my purse, the keys in the fridge, the overdue bill. It was not forgetfulness, and only 3 people had the combination to that safe: myself, David, and Chloe. I drove home from Mr. Alport's, the velvet box heavy in my purse. The fake stones felt like accusations. The fog of confusion, the one that had tormented me for weeks, was gone. It was replaced by a cold, quiet rage. It was the rage of a librarian who finds her card catalogue deliberately and maliciously rearranged. My mind was not failing. I was not forgetful. I was being managed. My first instinct was to burst into the house and throw the fake diamonds on the kitchen table, to scream, to demand answers from my son, the boy I had raised. But I stopped myself. If I confronted them, they would just lie. They would turn it back on me. "Oh, Mum, you must have forgotten. You probably took them to be cleaned and got them mixed up." They would look at me with that same pitying, concerned expression. They would use my anger as further proof of my instability. No, I would not give them the satisfaction. I needed proof. I needed evidence they could not talk their way out of. That night, I did not go to my usual bookmarked websites. I used a private browser on Frank's old desktop computer, the one in the study. I searched for smallest spy camera, motion-activated camera, and secure cloud storage. I am a meticulous person. I spent 3 hours comparing battery life, resolution, and data plans. I finally settled on a device no larger than a sugar cube. It promised high-definition video, motion alerts sent directly to a phone, and instant uploads. I paid the extra $50 for overnight shipping, sending it to a secure Amazon locker at a nearby grocery store. I spent the next day in a state of hypervigilance. Every interaction was a performance. I was the slightly dotty, loving mother. When Chloe asked if I had remembered my blood pressure pill, I smiled and tapped my lips. Oh, goodness. I think so, dear. You are so good to remind me. I waited until David and Chloe announced they were going to a movie. We are going to the 8 o'clock show, Mum, David said. We will be back late. You two have fun, I said, looking up from my novel. Do not worry about me. The moment I heard their car pull out of the driveway, I was in motion. I retrieved the small package from my purse. I went to the study. I knelt before the safe, my hand steady as I spun the dial. The heavy door clicked open. I had the camera in my palm. Now, where to hide it? It had to see everything, but not be seen. I looked past the jewelry boxes, past the stacks of papers, past the envelope of cash. My eyes landed on Frank's military service box. It was a dark, cherry wood box, filled with his medals, his dog tags, and old photographs. It sat in the back, untouched. I opened it. Inside, nestled in faded blue velvet, was his bronze star. I moved the medal aside. The velvet lining was a perfect, dark backdrop. I placed the tiny camera in the corner, its lens peeking through the narrow gap between the lid and the box's edge. It was invisible, and it had a perfect, panoramic view of the entire safe. I turned it on. A tiny blue light blinked once, then vanished. It was active. I closed the medal box, put it back exactly where it had been. I closed the heavy steel door of the safe, spun the lock, and wiped the dial clean. The trap was set. Now I just had to spring it. The next morning at breakfast, I made my announcement. I had the loveliest call from Martha last night. I lied, sipping my tea. She is feeling a bit under the weather. Poor thing. I think I am going to drive up to Boulder tomorrow and spend the day with her. Bring her some soup. Chloe's head snapped up. David paused, his spoon halfway to his mouth. Boulder? David asked. That is a long drive. Mum, are you sure you're up for it? Oh, nonsense, I said with a breezy wave. The drive will do me good. I will leave early, probably around 8, and I will be back late. Do not wait up for me. That is so sweet of you, Chloe said, her smile perfectly, sickeningly sweet. We will be fine here. You just have fun. The next morning, I did exactly as I said. I left at 8 o'clock, waving goodbye as I backed out of the driveway. But I did not drive to Boulder. I drove 3 miles to the main branch of the Denver Public Library. I parked my car in the back of the lot. I connected to the library's public Wi-Fi, a system I had helped implement. I opened my laptop and typed in the secure web address for the camera's feed. The screen was black, showing the inside of the dark safe. I had the app open on my phone as well. I turned the volume up, and I waited. I sat in the driver's seat of my car, surrounded by the quiet morning. I waited for 1 hour, then 2. My heart was not pounding. It was cold and slow, like a drumbeat. At 10:23 in the morning, my phone buzzed in my hand. A notification appeared on the screen. Motion detected. My hands were shaking, but I tapped the notification. The laptop screen flickered, then resolved into a clear, high-definition image. The feed was live, but the app also showed the motion-triggered recording that had just begun. I clicked play on the recording. A bright light flooded the camera's view as the heavy door of the safe swung open. The lens, peeking from Frank's medal box, had a perfect, slightly low-angle view. A figure stepped into the frame, blocking the light from the study. It was Chloe. She was wearing the grey cashmere sweater I had bought her for Christmas. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked calm. She knelt, bringing her face closer to the shelves. Her perfectly manicured hands' nails, painted a pale, innocent pink, hovered for a moment before moving with purpose. She did not go for the cash. She went straight to the jewelry boxes. My breath hitched. I watched as she opened the blue leather box that held my grandmother's pearls. It was a full set, a triple-strand necklace and matching bracelet, luminous with age. I had worn them at my wedding. Chloe lifted the heavy necklace, letting it pool in her left hand. With her right hand, she reached into the pocket of her jeans and pulled out an identical string of pearls. I watched, my stomach turning to ice as she held the two necklaces side by side, comparing them. The camera was so clear I could see the difference. Mine had the soft, deep luster of real, saltwater pearls. The one in her other hand was too white, too uniform, too shiny. A cheap imitation. She worked quickly, professionally. She dropped the fake necklace into the blue leather box, snapping it shut. My real pearls, my grandmother's pearls, disappeared into her pocket. She did the same with the bracelet, the entire swap taking less than 30 seconds. Then, a second shadow fell across the frame. David, my son. He did not even look at the jewelry. He did not look at Chloe. He moved past her, his body partially blocking my view. He went straight for the envelope of cash. I saw his hand, the hand I used to hold when he crossed the street. The hand that had a small scar on the knuckle from when he fell off his bike at age 10, close around the thick stack of $100 bills. He did not count them. He just folded the stack and slid it into his own pocket. They did not argue. They did not whisper like thieves. They acted like a team performing a routine chore. Chloe stood up, brushing off her knees. She looked at David. Her voice, captured with perfect clarity by the camera's microphone, was casual. "Is this enough for this week's payment?" David nodded, his back still to the camera. His voice was flat, without emotion. "It will have to be. Just one more big item, and we are clear for Dr. Vance's part." Dr. Vance who was Dr. Vance? Good, Chloe said. "Let's go. This place gives me the creeps." David moved out of the frame. Chloe gave one last look around the safe, her eyes scanning the shelves. Then she reached out and swung the heavy door shut. The screen went black. The recording ended. I sat in the front seat of my car, parked in the library lot. The silence was absolute. I was not crying. I was not even angry yet. I was just hollow. The air in my lungs felt like it had turned to glass, sharp and brittle. The theft was bad. The sight of her hands swapping my heritage for junk was sickening, but it was the conversation that echoed in my skull. They were not just stealing. This was not the desperate, sloppy act of a son who had lost his job. This was organized, efficient. They were a team. This week's payment, Dr. Vance. The betrayal was a physical thing, a cold weight pressing down on my chest. It was far deeper and more complex than I could have imagined. They were not just taking my things. They were funding something. And someone named Dr. Vance was a part of it. I realized, with a new, creeping horror, that the money and the jewelry were not the goal. They were just the means to an end. The question that froze my blood was what, exactly, was the end. I sat in the car for a long time. My mind replayed the video, the audio, over and over. Dr. Vance. Payment. It was clear. This was not about quick cash. This was a plan. I drove home, but I did not go straight home. I stopped at a bakery. I bought a box of assorted pastries, the kind David always liked. If I was going to be the loving mother who spent the day in Boulder, I had to look the part. I walked into my house. They were in the living room, watching television. "Mom?" David called out, a little too brightly. "How was Martha?" "Oh, she's feeling a bit better," I said, holding up the box. I brought back some treats. "You are the best," Chloe said, jumping up to take the box from me. "How was the drive?" "Long," I said, forcing a weary smile. "I think I am just going to have a cup of tea and head to bed early." I went to my room, but I did not go to bed. I sat in the dark, my laptop open, the camera feed a black rectangle. I had checked the settings. The audio was on, set to high sensitivity. I waited. I heard them lock the doors. I heard them go to their room downstairs. The house fell into its usual nighttime quiet. But for me, nothing was quiet. My blood was roaring in my ears. I sat in my chair, unmoving, for hours. I did not feel tired. I felt wired, like a spring pulled too tight. At 1:17 in the morning, my phone, silent on my lap, lit up with the notification. Motion detected. My heart did not jump. It sank, cold and heavy. I clicked the live feed. The safe was illuminated again. The door swung open. David and Chloe stepped inside, but this time, they were just standing there. They were not stealing. They were not swapping. They were just talking. They were using the solid steel walls of Frank's safe as a private conference room. They thought it was the safest place in the house to speak. The audio was perfectly clear. "Are you sure she'll drink it?" Chloe's voice, a tense whisper. "Positive." David's voice replied. "My son." His voice was not tense. It was calm, measured. "You just put the low dose in her morning chamomile tea? She drinks it every day, just enough to make her a little fuzzy when Dr. Vance gets here on Friday." Chloe. "God, David, I am still nervous. What if she's sharp? What if she's having a good day?" Then David's voice, cold, colder than the steel of the safe, colder than anything I had ever heard. "She won't be. It does not matter. With all the evidence, we have been building hiding her mail, swapping her blood pressure pills for those beta blockers, messing with her calendar plus Vance's report. The judge will sign the conservatorship papers immediately." He said it so simply. Hiding mail, swapping pills, the keys in the fridge, the overdue bill. It was all him. It was all them. Chloe let out a breath, a little giggle of relief. "And once we have the conservatorship," David finished, "we sell this house, liquidate everything, and we move her into Silver Meadows. Vance already has the referral. They specialize in progressive cognitive decline. I hit the mute button on my laptop. I leaned over the wastebasket by my desk and was physically sick. The pastries, the tea, everything I had eaten, it all came up. I wiped my mouth, my body trembling violently. They were not just stealing from me. They were creating my dementia. They were manufacturing my senility. They were planning to have me declared legally incompetent, to take everything I had, and to bury me alive in a facility while they lived off my money. They were not just thieves. They were murderers. They were just planning a slower, more profitable kind of murder. After that night, everything was different. The nausea passed, but the coldness remained. The next morning, when I walked into the kitchen, I was no longer Margaret, the loving mother. I was an actor. And this house was my stage. I understood the entire play now. Every forgotten key, every overdue bill, every solicitous offer of help. It was all a meticulously constructed narrative, written by my son and his wife, designed to culminate in my destruction. They needed evidence. Very well. I would give them evidence. My performance began that morning. "Good morning, dear," I said to Chloe as she measured coffee grounds. "Helen, would you be a darling and pass me the sugar?" Chloe froze, the coffee scoop hovering over the filter. "Helen, Mom, it's Chloe." I blinked, widening my eyes in confusion. Oh, my goodness. Chloe, of course. Forgive me. I do not know why I said Helen. She was an old friend from the library. I gave a little shaky laugh. My mind must still be in Boulder. I watched Chloe and David exchange a look over my head. It was a small, quick glance, but it said everything. It said, "It's working. She's slipping." I had to play my part perfectly. I had to become the person they were pretending I was. Later that afternoon, I was cooking. I put a pot of water on the stove to boil for tea. I let it come to a rolling boil. Then I turned off the flame, but left the gas burner on, just slightly. The faint hiss was barely audible. I walked out of the kitchen, ostensibly to find my reading glasses. I waited in the hallway, just around the corner, my body tense. It only took a minute. "Mum?" David's voice, sharp with alarm. "Mum, you left the gas on." I hurried back, my face a mask of horror. "What? Oh, no. Oh, David. I must have thought I turned it off." "You could have burned the house down. You could have killed us," he shouted. His panic looked real, but his eyes were cold. Chloe rushed over, guiding me to a chair. "It's okay, honey. It's okay," she cooed, rubbing my back. "See, this is why we are here to help. You just have too much on your mind." They exchanged another look. This one was triumphant. They had another checkmark for their list: reckless endangerment, olfactory failure, menace to self and others. The most difficult part was the medication. I heard them whispering in their room that evening. They were planning the big day. I needed to know when. I forgot where the bathroom was, wandering down the hall toward their bedroom. "She has to be assessed," I heard David say, his voice low. I know. Vance's office confirmed," Chloe replied. "This Friday, 10 in the morning. He'll come here. It has to be here, so he can see her in her confused state." Friday. That gave me 2 days. The next morning, Chloe brought me my weekly pill organizer. Let me help you with these. Margaret. It's so easy to get them mixed up. I knew this was coming. I had my phone in my robe pocket, the video recorder already on. I had accidentally spilled a glass of water, and while I was fumbling with the paper towels, I had propped the phone against the toaster, the lens aimed directly at the counter where she worked. I watched her, my back turned, pretending to wipe the floor. You are such a dear. Chloe. I watched her on the tiny, reflective screen of the microwave. I saw her nimble fingers pop open the compartment for Thursday morning. I saw her palm my multivitamin. And I saw her take a small, white, chalky pill from her pocket and press it into the compartment. She snapped the lid shut. All set for the week. Mom, she said, her voice bright and cheerful. The next morning, Thursday, I came to the kitchen. Chloe was watching, a cup of coffee in her hands. David was at the table, pointedly reading the paper. They were waiting for me to take the pill. I opened the box. I took out the doctored vitamin. I took my blood pressure medication. I popped both into my mouth, took a large swallow of water, and smiled. There. All done. Chloe's smile was relieved. David turned his page. I walked to the kitchen sink, as if to rinse my glass. With my back to them, I spat the half-dissolved, bitter pill into my hand, concealing it in a paper towel before throwing it away. The chalky, chemical taste filled my mouth. I rinsed my mouth, my heart hammering. I felt like a spy in some cheap, terrible film. But this was not a film. This was my life. This was my home. And I was in a house with two people who were methodically, calmly, trying to steal my mind. I had until 10 in the morning on Friday. I had to act. And I had to act fast. I had one day, Thursday, Friday at 10 in the morning. The trap would be sprung. I knew I could not fight this alone. They had a doctor. They were building a legal case. I needed a lawyer. I went to the kitchen. David and Chloe were already there, flush with the success of my drugged state. I am feeling so fuzzy today, I said, putting a hand to my head. I think I need to get out. I am going to get my hair done. A little pampering always makes me feel better. Chloe immediately brightened. That is a wonderful idea. Mum, do you need a ride? No, I said quickly. The fresh air will do me good. My appointment is at 11. I did not have an appointment at a salon. I had an 11:30 consultation with Ms. Hayes. Brenda Hayes was not the kind of lawyer who did warm, fuzzy commercials. Her reputation was that of a shark, a specialist in financial elder abuse and probate litigation. She was exactly what I needed. I walked into her stark, modern office. I did not cry. I did not ramble. I was a librarian, and I had my facts in order. Ms. Hayes? I began, setting a small USB drive on her polished desk. I am here because my son and his wife are systematically attempting to have me declared incompetent so they can seize my assets and put me in a facility. She raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. She had probably heard variations of this story 100 times. That is a very serious allegation. Mrs. Vega, what makes you believe this? This, I said. I instructed her how to open the files. We sat in silence. First, I showed her the video from the day before. She watched, her face impassive, as Chloe swapped my pearls and David pocketed my cash. She watched them discuss the payment. This is theft, she said, but it's not a conservatorship. This is, I said, and I played the second file, the audio from 1:17 in the morning. We listened to my son's cold, calm voice, just enough to make her a little fuzzy. We listened to Chloe's giggle. Sell this house, move her into Silver Meadows, Ms. Hayes's professional mask did not slip, but her eyes hardened. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. When the audio finished, she clicked pause and looked at me, all traces of skepticism gone. "My God," she said, her voice a low growl. "They are not just building a case. They have a script, a doctor, and a destination. They are building a perfect, airtight box to lock you in. Margaret." "They mentioned a Dr. Vance," I said, my voice steady. "Ms." Hayes nodded, a grim smile touching her lips. "Howard Vance." "Of course. I know the name. He's been investigated twice by the state board for convenient diagnoses. He's a hired gun for families looking to fast-track guardianships. He's slippery, but he's never faced this." She tapped the USB drive. "What do we do?" I asked. "We fight," she said. She was all business. "Their entire case rests on one fact, that you are mentally incompetent. We will dismantle that fact so completely that it will collapse their entire plan." She picked up her phone. "Their assessment is tomorrow. We need our own now." She did not wait for me to reply. She dialed. "Sarah, it's Brenda. I have an emergency. I need Dr. Albright, not his assistant. Him. I am sending a client over right now." "Yes, I know he is. Tell him this is a Silver Meadows case. He will understand." She hung up and wrote an address on a pad. Dr. Leon Albright. He is the foremost geriatric psychologist in the state, and he is the court's most trusted expert witness. He detests Howard Vance. Go to him. Do exactly what he says. I left her office and drove straight to Dr. Albright's. I was terrified he would find something wrong, that the stress had made me exactly what David and Chloe claimed I was. I spent the next 4 hours undergoing the most rigorous examination of my life. There were memory tests, logic puzzles, interviews, and written questionnaires. I was asked to recall word lists, draw complex shapes, and explain abstract concepts. It was exhausting. At the end, Dr. Albright, a kind-eyed man with a sharp suit, sat back and steepled his fingers. "Mrs. Vega," he said, "on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, you scored 30 out of 30. Your recall is perfect. Your reasoning is faster than most of my graduate students. To be clear, you are not just competent. You are exceptionally sharp. You are being gaslit, not suffering from dementia." He typed for several minutes, printed out a 5-page document, and signed the last page with a flourish. He stamped it with a notary seal. "This," he said, handing me the report, "is a legally binding affidavit of your complete and total mental capacity. You give this to Brenda Hayes, and good luck." I walked out of his office, the report clutched in my hand. It was the first weapon I had. The performance was over. It was time to prepare for the confrontation. I walked back into my house from Dr. Albright's office, my composure a carefully constructed mask. The signed affidavit in my purse felt like a heavy piece of steel. I had less than 24 hours. My performance for this last day had to be my best. I had to be the person they expected confused, fading, and pliable. I forgot where I put my purse, wandering into the kitchen and opening the refrigerator as if looking for it. Chloe gently guided me out. "Mum, it's on your shoulder." I looked down, my face a picture of mortified confusion. "Oh, of course. How silly of me. I am just..." I am so tired today. David and Chloe exchanged that look, the it's time look. I excused myself for a nap, locking my bedroom door. My phone buzzed on silent. A text from the unknown number Ms. Hayes had used. Call from the clean line. I used the prepaid phone I had purchased that afternoon. Ms. Hayes answered on the first ring. The report from Dr. Albright is magnificent, she said, her voice all business. It's an ironclad affidavit of competence. Now, the plan for tomorrow, 10 o'clock. I am ready, I whispered. Dr. Albright will be there. He is personally offended by Vance and is looking forward to this. He will arrive at 10:15, exactly 15 minutes after Vance is scheduled. And he is not coming alone. I have contacted a friend, Sergeant Miller of the Denver Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. He will be in plain clothes. They will wait on the street until I give the signal. Your only job, Margaret, is to let it happen. Let Vance begin his assessment. Let Chloe give you the tea. The tea, I repeated. My stomach tightened. Yes, we need to catch them in the act. The attempted drugging of a senior for financial gain is a serious felony. It is the final nail in their coffin. I understand, I said, my voice firmer. You are in control, Margaret, she said. We are just the cavalry. Be ready. After we hung up, I had work to do. My house was already wired, but the main event would happen in the living room. While Chloe and David were in the backyard, loudly discussing how my rose bushes were too much for me to handle. I retrieved my last spy camera. I went to the large, leafy ficus plant in the corner of the living room. Frank had always hated it. I nestled the camera deep within the leaves. Its tiny lens pointed directly at the armchair I always sat in, with a wide view of the sofa opposite. I checked the feed on my phone. The view was perfect. Next, the kitchen. I went to the china cabinet and took out the delicate, cornflower-patterned teacup I used every morning. Then, I reached into the back and took out its identical twin, the spare I had bought years ago in case of breakage, one I left on the counter, next to the box of chamomile tea. The other I took to my bedroom and hid in my closet. That evening, I sat in the living room, pretending to read a book upside down until Chloe gently corrected me. She sat on the arm of my chair, patting my hand. Her voice was smooth, like thick honey. Mum, I am so glad you are relaxing. Now, I just want to remind you, that nice doctor is coming tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. It is just a general checkup, you know, to make sure you are getting everything you need. I took care of all the paperwork. I looked up at her, widening my eyes. I summoned a small, tremulous smile. Oh, Chloe, you are so good to me. I do not know what I would do without you. You are a lifesaver. Of course, Mum, she said, squeezing my hand. We just want to take care of you. That night, I did not sleep. I waited until I heard the house settle, until the faint sounds of David's video game from the basement finally went silent. I went to Frank's study. I sat in his chair, one by one. I downloaded every file, the audio of the conspiracy in the safe, the video of the pearl and cash theft, the video from my phone, capturing Chloe's hands as she swapped my vitamin for the white, chalky pill. I compiled them all into a single, organized folder on a new external hard drive. It was a small, black rectangle. I clicked eject. I held the hard drive in my palm. It was all there. My mind, my sanity, the truth. I went to my room and took out the navy blue blazer I planned to wear. I slipped the hard drive into the deep, zippered inside pocket. I would not take this blazer off. They would have to take it from my body. I sat in the dark, my hand over the pocket, and I waited for 10 o'clock in the morning. Friday, 9 in the morning. I was not in my robe. I was dressed in a pair of charcoal grey slacks, a silk blouse, and the navy blue blazer. The hard drive in the inner pocket was a small, square weight against my ribs. I had my hair and makeup done. I was not a victim. I was the host of this event. I sat in my armchair in the living room, the one with the clear view of the front door. The ficus plant in the corner watched me. David and Chloe were flitting around me, their nervous energy so thick I could almost taste it. They were like bad actors before an opening night. "Mum, are you comfortable?" David asked, adjusting a pillow behind my head. "Can I get you some water?" Chloe chimed in. "I am fine. Dears, just fine," I said, giving them a slightly unfocused smile. "Just waiting for that nice doctor. It is so good of you to arrange this." "Of course. Mum," David said, patting my shoulder. "At 9:30. Chloe glanced at the clock. "It's almost time for your tea," she said, her voice bright. "Let me go and get your morning chamomile." "Thank you, dear," I said. "You know how it calms my nerves." She bustled off to the kitchen. I kept my face placid, but in my mind, I was watching on another screen. I had placed my smallest camera, the original one from the safe, on top of the kitchen cabinets the night before, tucked behind a decorative plate. I had checked the feed. It saw the counter, the kettle, and the teacups. On that mental screen, I watched her. I watched her boil the water. I watched her pull down the cornflower-patterned cup, the one I had left on the counter. And then I watched her, just as the kettle began to whistle, take a small, amber-coloured vial from her pocket. She glanced back toward the living room, then quickly, deftly, tapped a small mound of white powder into the cup. She added the tea bag, poured the hot water, and stirred. A moment later, she walked into the living room, a perfect picture of domestic care. She held the steaming cup and saucer in her hand. The camera in the ficus was now the primary witness. "Here you go, Mum," she said, placing it in my hand. "Drink it while it's warm. It will make you feel better." David stood near the fireplace, watching. They were both watching. Their eyes were fixed on the cup, on my mouth. This was the moment. This was the final piece of their evidence, the drugged, confused old woman. I smiled at Chloe. "Thank you, dear." I raised the cup to my lips. I could smell the faint, bitter, chemical undertone beneath the scent of chamomile. I tilted it, and just as it touched my lips, I let out a sharp, sudden cough, a spasm that jolted my entire arm. "Oh!" I cried out. The hot tea splashed, flying forward, drenching the front of my blazer and the arm of the chair. The cup clattered back onto the saucer, but most of the drugged liquid was gone, soaked into the fabric. "Oh my goodness," I exclaimed, my voice a perfect quaver of embarrassment. "Oh, my word, my blazer. I am so clumsy, so stupid." "Mom," Chloe shrieked, her voice sharp, with genuine frustration. The plan had been interrupted. "Oh, God, it's hot." "Get a towel," David snapped. Chloe ran to the kitchen. "I am so sorry," I babbled, standing up and fanning my blazer. "What a mess, I have ruined it." This was the moment. Chloe was at the kitchen sink, running a cloth under water. David was distracted, looking at the puddle on the hardwood floor, in two quick, fluid motions. I stepped away from the chair, placed the soiled, now half-empty cup and saucer on the side table, and moved toward the hallway, as if to check the damage in the hall mirror. My hand dove into the pocket of my house robe, which I had hung on the coat rack earlier. I pulled out the identical, clean, empty, cornflower-patterned cup and saucer I had hidden there. When Chloe ran back in, flapping a damp dish towel, I was standing back in the middle of the room, holding the new, clean cup. "It is all right, dear. Do not fuss," I said, my voice shaky. I will just get myself another cup. The pot is still hot." Chloe looked at the cup in my hand, her face a mask of confusion. She looked at the spilled tea on the chair. She did not see the switch. She only saw that her first attempt had failed. "No, Mom. Sit down," David said, his voice tight. "I will get it." "Nonsense," I said, walking past them to the kitchen. "I can do it. I am not completely helpless." I took a fresh tea bag, filled the clean cup with simple, hot water, and walked back into the living room, vowing to be more careful. I sat back down. I took a loud, deliberate sip of the clean tea. "Ah, that is better." David and Chloe stared at me, their frustration palpable. Their star witness was now drinking undrugged tea. Their timeline was ruined. It was 9:55 in the morning. The doorbell rang. Chloe and David looked at each other, a flash of panic. The doctor was here, and their mother was not yet fuzzy. "That must be him," David said, smoothing his shirt. He went to the door. Chloe leaned in, her voice a low hiss. "How are you feeling?" "Mum? You seem a little shaky." I smiled at her. "I am just fine, dear. Just fine." The door opened. A man in an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase, stepped inside. He had a smooth, practiced, untrustworthy face. "Dr. Vance?" David said, extending a hand. "Thank you so much for coming." Dr. Vance swept in, all polished leather and false sympathy. He shook David's hand warmly, gave Chloe a reassuring nod, and then turned to me. He smiled a smile that did not touch his eyes. A dentist looking at a rotten tooth. "Mrs. Vega, so good to finally meet you. I am just here to have a little chat." He sat on the sofa opposite me, opening his leather briefcase. David and Chloe stood behind him, like a Greek chorus of false concern. "Now," Vance began, looking at his notes. "Let's just get our bearings. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning, isn't it?" I paused, as if straining to retrieve the information. I looked at the window. "Tuesday," I repeated, my voice wavering. "Is it oh?" I lose track. "David, is it Tuesday?" David stepped forward, his face a mask of sorrow. He shook his head slowly. "It's Friday. Mum?" "Oh," I said, looking down at my hands. "Oh, I am sorry." "That's quite all right," Dr. Vance said, making a very deliberate note on his clipboard. "Now, I am going to ask you to—" He was interrupted by the doorbell ringing again, sharp and insistent. David looked annoyed. "We are not expecting anyone else," he snapped, marching to the door. He pulled it open, his irritation clear. Standing on the doorstep was Ms. Hayes, looking sharp in a steel grey suit. Behind her stood Dr. Albright, and a tall, impassive man in a tweed jacket who held no briefcase. We are in the middle of a private medical assessment, David said, trying to block the doorway. Ms. Hayes did not flinch. I am not here to see you, she said, stepping past him into the foyer. Dr. Albright and Sergeant Miller followed. Hello, Howard? Ms. Hayes said, her voice cutting through the room. I am Ms. Hayes. I am Margaret's attorney. The colour drained from Dr. Vance's face. David and Chloe froze, statues of disbelief. Attorney, Chloe whispered. What is this? Vance stood up. This is highly irregular. This is a private consultation. I stood up from my armchair. The tremor in my voice was gone. The fog was gone. My voice rang out, clear and steady. No, doctor, I said. This is not a consultation. This is a criminal investigation. Chloe and David stared at me. They were not looking at the fuzzy mother. They were looking at a stranger. I turned to the large television mounted above the fireplace, my hand already holding the remote. My hard drive was already connected. David, Chloe, you seem to enjoy talking in private. I thought everyone should hear what you have to say. I pressed the play button. The room was filled with the sound, their voices, captured from the safe. Just enough to make her a little fuzzy when Dr. Vance gets here. Judge will sign the conservatorship papers immediately. Sell this house. Move her into Silver Meadows. The audio echoed in the dead silence of the room. Dr. Vance, his face white, lunged for the wall socket, trying to pull the plug on the TV. I wouldn't do that, Sergeant Miller said. His voice was quiet, but it stopped Vance cold. He held up his badge. Doctor, you should sit down. Right now. Dr. Albright stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Vance. Howard, I am ashamed of you. I conducted a full geriatric psychiatric evaluation of Mrs. Vega 48 hours ago. She scored 30 out of 30 on the MOCA. She is not just competent, she is brilliant. This report, he held up the affidavit, is already on its way to the State Medical Board. Vance looked like he was going to be sick. Ms. Hayes, meanwhile, walked to the arm of my chair. She pointed to the dark, damp stain on the upholstery. Then she bent and retrieved the teacup I had spilled, the one I had carefully slid under the chair when I made the swap. It still had a few drops of liquid in it. She placed it on the coffee table. Sergeant, she said, this cup, which I saw Mrs. Chloe give my client, contains a significant dose of tetrazepam, an unprescribed sedative. We have video of her putting the powder in the cup, recorded just 30 minutes ago. She gestured to the ficus plant. And we have this. That was the end. The performance was over. Chloe let out a sound, a high-pitched, animal wail, and her legs buckled. She collapsed onto the carpet. David did not catch her. He was staring at me, his mouth open, finally understanding. He began to sob, thick, ugly sounds. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, the man who had tried to erase me. I did not feel rage. I did not feel sadness. I just felt empty. A cold, quiet, cavernous void where my love for him used to be. I installed the camera, I said, my voice quiet. I thought you were just stealing my money, but in reality, you were trying to bury me alive. Ms. Hayes gave a small, sharp nod to Sergeant Miller. He stepped forward, pulling out the handcuffs. David Vega, Chloe Vega, you are under arrest for conspiracy, aggravated theft, and attempted assault on an elder. As Miller pulled a wailing Chloe to her feet, I said my last words to them. I looked only at David. This is not your home anymore. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I want to know where you are listening from. So please, drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, give this video a like, and show your support by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this.